All right. Hello again. This is Foghorn with another installment of Flight School Academics. For this, the 17th of April, 2951, or 2021, if you're stuck in the past. This presentation is part of an ongoing series of academics for the members of the Aurora Republic, the premier role-playing organization in Star Citizen. If you are new to the Aurora Republic or visiting for the first time, let me start by saying welcome. We are glad to have you with us and would love to hear from you if you are interested in hearing more from us. We are a lawful good organization focused on roleplay exploration and social interaction, are currently active in recruiting on Spectrum and Gilded. Okay, without further ado, let's get faster and funnier. So it's been basically a year since we last talked about formation flying, so time to let's refresh that little bit of academic knowledge for everybody. And this is, in fact, part formation flying. This is the, we've divided our formation flying academics into two parts, into a basic and an advanced. The basic formation flying academics you see here is the one of the academic blocks in our undergraduate pilot training program. So those of you that have been bugging me about, not bugging, I'm kidding about bugging. Those of you who've been asking me about when we are going to get some of our other training syllabi more fleshed out and everything. The undergraduate pilot training one is the one that is currently the focus of the IPs and the new IP cadre. They're actually been using some of this as practice instructional events. And so stand by to see more. So you're actually seeing that block tonight as it's pretty close to its finished form. This is not even my final form, but it's close. Okay, so overview real quick. We're going to talk about the situational responsibilities between a formation of two, a flight lead and a wingman. We're going to talk more about what those formations are. The two we're going to discuss and tonight is, of course, Fingertip and Fighting Wing. The legend on the right, and then we're also going to go over some formation-specific comm that for brevity code words that is good to know. You can see our legend over there. You'll see that consistently used throughout the brief and pretty much throughout all of our academics for consistency and accuracy. Okay, so basically starting off with responsibilities, the idea of a formation, a flight leader and a wingman relationship between those two as two ship is a military construct. It exists for both two ships and four ships. Basically, a two-ship element is the basic building block of aerial formations that have been used in the military for millennia. As far as Star Citizen is concerned, it's been used for more than a century in modern day terms, for almost a century in modern day terms, and basically all the lessons that were learned in World War I and then reinforced in World War II in Korea and Vietnam and all the way up to today. That coordinated firepower of two guys working in concert with a military, not rank, because it's not based on rank, but a military hierarchy of a lead and a wingman has proven itself to be nearly unbeatable by anybody who is not using that sort of a construct. And a four ship is simply two ship elements that are built up into four. However, this is basic formation, so we are only going to really be discussing everything from a two ship perspective, and we'll worry about four ship if you get into the advanced stuff later on. So formation versus element. Element is a two ship. Every time you say element, it always means a two ship. Elements are two ships and two ships only. A formation could be a single element of two. It could be two elements of two, therefore making a four ship. So formation is a less specific word that could mean either or. Responsibilities of the flight lead. Now, this is some of this stuff is sort of in training, to use the military perspective from this. The flight lead in training missions is responsible for coming up with the scenario that you're going to train to, based on what the squadron schedulers have scheduled you guys to go work on today. So if they've scheduled to go do a surface attack tactics ride, then the flight lead's going to come up with some scenario as simple or as complex as he wants to spend everybody's time. And notice I didn't say his, I said everyone's time, because everybody in the formation is an asset for the flight lead to use in mission planning. But he's responsible for that flight planning Making sure it gets done doesn't necessarily mean he does it all himself. Like I said, he uses his flight mates as necessary because it is a team. And then the flight lead is primarily responsible for the execution. It's his game plan his or her game plan that you are going to go out and execute. If you're the wingman or if you're the number 3 element lead, then you are backing them up. During flying, then the flight lead is the guy in the formation who's primarily responsible for navigation and for clearing, because clearing for the entire formation as far as what's out ahead of them, make sure they don't run into anything. Because particularly in close formations where people are in fingertip, etc., the wingmen are going to be eyes locked on the flight lead because you guys are flying within 3 feet of each other. So they're not going to really be clearing. The flight lead is clearing for the entire formation. Yes, that is often in the early days when you're first learning to fly in the entire time that you're looking left, looking out the side of the airplane at the flight lead. It is an uncomfortable feeling at the end because you're not looking forward to see if you're going to smash into anything, and it's a big trust game. The flight lead is also the primary talker on the radios with the, if it's a 4-ship, with the number 3 element lead backing him up, and the wingman backing him up if it's only a 2-ship. The wingman. The wingman in training scenarios, the reason why I'm bringing this up about training scenarios is because mission planning for actual combat missions is not done by the air crew. Obviously in combat, you're going to want a rapid pace of combat, and you're going to be trying to get as much time out of each one of these pilots as you can. And there are rules about how long you can fly them before they have to be given a rest. So, missions are not planned by the air crew. There will be mission planning cells that are formed up, and the air crew basically, wake up at the latest possible point to, get dressed, get suited up, get in there, get some food, whatever, and boop, get handed the mission materials, study them really quick, step out to the jets, go fly, because the missions may require you to be in the air 10 or 11 hours, and at 12 hours you magically turn into a pumpkin and are not legally allowed to be operating an airplane anymore. So when we talk about creating mission planning for like scenarios and everything, that's training, because they don't do mission planning cells just for training sorties. The day-to-day training sorties when you're in garrison is done by you guys, by the pilots themselves, the air crews themselves. So the wingman, when the flight lead is making those plans, assists in that planning, and then his job is to listen to the briefing before you fly and then execute as briefed or as directed by the flight lead. The wingman's when they're flying, the wingman's primary duty is formation deconfliction. Don't hit the other dude, no matter what he does. I mean, even if he does something stupid like turn and pull into you, your job is to, your eyes aren't really supposed to be anywhere else except for making sure that you have formation deconfliction. So they're primarily responsible for maintaining visual with lead and being in position, aka saddled, in the formation that you're directed, and then back up the flight lead with navigation and communications. Okay, so a couple of times where who's who in the zoo kind of situations, where times where the flight lead might change. And this is always be directive by the flight lead. Times where he may give up flight leadership and hand it to you. So normally you'd be running around like you see there. Number 1's leading the formation, so he's going to be out on the point. Out on the radios, he's also leading the radio. So of course, before you guys take off, go do whatever to make sure that you're on the same radio frequency as him. He's going to check you in. So we'll use the call sign of bullet tonight. So bullet 1 would say bullet check, and of course you as number 2 would say toot, not bullet 2. You just say toot, because he already prefaced it with the word bullet when he was checking you guys in. Then of course after he's checked you in on that frequency, then he would go ahead and make whatever radio call that he would. So obviously, as shown here, Mad Dog Bullet Flight of 2 gunslingers with you with words. Okay, so that's the normal, but what point would running around as a wingman might I get suddenly tossed? I might get lateraled the football unexpectedly and shoved out onto the front. So say one would be perhaps there's some sort of a system problem in number 1's jet, and he's incapable of navigating, and he needs you to lead him back because his system's bent. His system's busted. So he would, of course, tell you, and then he would pass you the lead. Bullet 1, gadget bent. Bullet 2, you have the lead on the left. And at that point, you would pull up. You would acknowledge bullet 2 has the lead on the left. And once you guys kind of pass 3-9, then you would check him in, now leading the formation. You would check them in as bullet check, and he would say 2 to confirm that this lead change is now complete. And then you'd bring them back to wherever, whatever would be appropriate for whatever the situation is as far as whatever the malfunction is. Bullet our tower, bullet flight of 2 with you 20 clicks to land. Okay, the second place that you kind of, you'll see Wingman kind of accidentally not be ready to suddenly get handed the football, metaphorically speaking, to be suddenly back in charge of what they're doing with their airplane, is when you actually split the formation. So as it is in Star Citizen right now, we can't do formation landings. There's not formation runways. Everybody lands either in a hangar or in a pad. So you're doing these sort of hover vertical letdown kind of things. So we're never going to actually come in and do any formation landings unless that fact changes in the future, which it always could, but I haven't heard any scuttlebutt about that. So typically what we're going to do when you come back after a training sortie or a combat sortie, when you get back to when you RTB home plate back to your base of intended landing, then of course distance out, once you're basically close enough that you can have the intended recovery base on sensors. So like probably coming out of the last quantum travel at the destination, then you would first check that your flight mates, the flight lead would check that the wingman also has good navigational systems for this. So before he clears them off, you would say, bullet 2 alpha check. That's what alpha check means, is a navigation system check. You would say alpha check home plate. He's asking you, dude, is your navigation system showing you where home plate is at? And you would look down and say bullet 2 sweet if it does, or bullet 2 sour if it does not. If you say bullet 2 sweet, then he's going to say bullet 2 cleared off, and you are now back to being your own single ship entity, with full command of your radios and spacecraft and everything else. If you said bullet 2 sour, then he's probably going to hold on to you. He's not going to split the formation up, and he's going to drag you back to, basically back into you're definitely within visual range, and then he's going to go, bullet 2, bullet 1 has home plate nose for 3 kilometers. In other words, dude, look out the window. Can you see it now? At that point, you'd say, visual home plate, and he'd then clear you off to come in on a visual approach without needing to have a nav system. Okay, and then the big thing there is like once he says cleared off and you acknowledge with 2, you are now your own separate ATC entity again. So you are your own. You are now 2 flights. You are now bullet 1 flight of 1 and bullet 2 flight of 1. And you'd each be responsible for your own, radio calls, clearances, and all that sort of thing. All right, so the flight lead runs the mission, sets the formation. He clears, navigates, and executes the game plan that he's come up with for this mission. Wings support by staying visual, being saddled, aka information, and deconflicting the formation, and then bringing their firepower to where the flight lead directs it. And of course, always remember to always be striving for that clear, concise, correct comms at all times. So the administrative formations, aka what we like to call the airshow shit, because you don't go into combat with these. These are administrative things, forms you put in. And all night tonight, you're going to hear me talking about aspect angles from your flight lead's tail. And if you're familiar, if you have enough command of geometry to understand the concept, if you know the term I'm about to say of opposite angles, then basically the angle off of his tail will also be the angle off of his nose. If assuming you are both co-heading, then the line of sight from your skull through his skull creates an angle from his tail to that line of sight. That is the same angle from your nose over to that line of sight by the rule of opposite angles in geometry, which means that you can use what we call monitor references or monitor code. So the default field of view for Star Citizen is 90 degrees. If you have not changed that, then that means that the left and right bezel, when your head in the cockpit is looking straight forward, is 45 degrees off of the nose. If you're using something like, if you're using any of their native head tracking with a camera, or you're using Track IR or Track Hat, or you're using Tobii eye tracker or any of these eye trackers that allows you to move your head, remember that this monitor reference works only when you're looking 12 o'clock the direction of travel, the direction of the nose. And yeah, I know in this picture I actually have the picture of the Avenger cockpit off just slightly because I had my head slightly turned when I took the still shot. So just imagine that was actually perfectly centered up on that 0 line. So it's actually not referenced to the cockpit, it's referenced to the monitor. So 0 being right center of the monitor, and 45 degrees being the left and right edge. If you've changed that default field of view, then like say you moved it out to 100, then that left and right edge would be 50 degrees. So when you need to be 45 degrees is the line you're looking for, then that would be just inside the edge of the monitor bezel. Okay, so fingertip. The reason why I just brought all of that up about those monitor references is fingertip can be performed as a 2-ship or a 3-ship or a 4-ship. It is considered 3-foot wingtip spacing. That does not mean 3 feet between you and their party marker. Okay, that's on using Avengers where the seats are in the Avenger and how big it is. That's actually roughly it's roughly 35 meters is what you would see in the party marker. Now, you're not going to actually be able to get that close in the state of the game at the moment because of the rubber banding. When you get inside of about 100 meters from each other, then your flight lead, no matter what, they could be flying perfectly smooth, but their spacecraft is going to be popping back and forth, aka rubber banding back and forth because of the server network lag issues that they have right now. But for the academic purposes of it, it's on the wing line, which we call 45 degrees of aspect. So in other words, you'd put him on the edge of the monitor and make sure you guys' noses are going the same direction, same way, same day. So you have parallel flight paths. Put them out at 45 degrees of aspect, or just a little bit under that. You know, you can be slightly slung aft to keep them on the edge of the monitor, but you're not pointing at them. Notice that you have them over at the edge of the monitor, and you're watching what they're doing and being very careful not to let them slip off the side of the monitor, or else you'll be pushing forward. You can do this as a 3-ship or a 4-ship, which we will cover in an advanced class. The more combat-oriented one for that, or I should say not combat-oriented because this is basic, so we're not worried about combat, but the easier one, more, shall we say, the maneuvering formation, one is much looser. You're not having to spend all of your time staring at your flight lead because you're in close, is called fighting wing. And this is a maneuvering formation. So when the flight lead needs to sort of hayaka the formation around and just let you sort of ski rope around behind them, then he should put you in fighting wing, which is exactly what that formation was designed for, was for flexibility so that it's not such a bear on the wingman to stay in formation and the flight lead doesn't have to be as ginger. When you're in fingertip, there's a very, very specific technique that I've been teaching flight leads on how to fly when you have somebody in fingertip, which is very, very ginger. You're not going to be doing big, massive, high G combat maneuvers. It's all very slow, very smooth. That's why we call it airshow shit, because you're only going to do it when you're like coming up initial, when you're within eyeball range over the air base. So you look good before you guys break and land. This is what you're going to do when you just need to be able to hayaka turn and burn, not turn and burn, but just not have the wingman in so close so that you can just turn hard and get the formation moving where you want. So the wingman is given an entire cone behind lead's airplane to maneuver in, everywhere from the 45 degree line reference back, basically. However, there is a cone, if you will. In that cone, there is a circle at dead 6 that you're supposed to stay out of. Back out to 100 meter to 300 meter range. Like I said, the wingman can just ski rope. He can go on the inside of the turn, outside of the turn, whatever he needs to. Doesn't have to tell the flight lead where he's at. Just maneuver around there, stay behind me, stay in that cone, and stay out of dead 6. So that you can be seen and for safety of flight purposes. So it's not a pure cone because of that. It's a donut shape, but in a coned donut, so it's a conut. Formation summaries, yeah. So as a pro, this is kind of how I use them, and I kind of already alluded to this. When I'm running around outside with outside of the traffic pattern, you're going to be in fighting wing almost all day. If we're not doing combat stuff, we're just going from 2 to 2, getting fighting wing. Why? Because I don't care when we're not anywhere where people can sort of see us, we're not trying to show off and look good, then, dude, I'm going to make it as easy on the Wingman again. Just get in there, hang on to the ski rope, follow me around. I can now just hayaka my jet wherever I need to, and I just expect you to hang on and be there. Hang on with me. But when we're coming into the traffic pattern, if I'm not going to split you off prior to getting back to the base, if I've briefed that we're going to do an overhead break, which is covered in our traffic pattern discussions, then if we're going to bring you up initial and go into an overhead pattern where we're going to come up to the break point and then peel off one at a time, which looks very good from the ground. When people are outside and they see it, they go, holy crap, those guys are pros. Then I'm going to, at the last kilometer or so from the base, I'm going to, wiggle you in from fighting wing into fingertip, have you close to fingertip. And we're basically only going to do finger lip basically in a straight line, because I'm going to try to make it as easy for you. Plus the fact that it's going to be straight up initial, which is a straight line. And then I'm going to give you the signal that, hey, break 3 seconds, boom. And then I'm going to peel away from you and you're going to fly straight for 3 seconds. And then you're going to do a break turn and do that too. So that's how I use it. All right, so the words that you need that are specific to formation that you should probably already be familiar with, because we use it fairly well. But obviously, so talking about, do you see each other, visual contact, the words visual and blind is reserved for talking about friendlies, talking about each other. So you and I are visual with each other. Oh shit, I don't see you. Hey, two's blind. That's how we communicate that in a single word, instead of having to drone on with a litany of an entire paragraph to just simply say, I don't see you. So two's blind. If you're talking about anybody not friendly, not us, it's a bandit or a potential bandit, which is a bogey, an unknown, we don't know their intentions, then that you don't say visual and blind. You can imply already that these are not friendlies by using tally and no joy, or tally ho and no joy. The tally ho is kind of a throwback to antiquity. It's really more just tally and like maybe a number. So you're like tally 1. Okay, that means I see 1 unknown. Or tally 3. Oh crap, there's three unknowns. Or no joy. Hey, bullet 1's tally 1. Bullet 2, no joy. Okay, so you're looking out the window going, I don't see him, and I'm not seeing him on my radars. Okay, so speaking about aspect of any target, whether that target is an enemy or that target could be like your flight lead when you're doing a rejoin. This is the quick one-word way of describing what aspect you're seeing off of them. So line of sight from you to the target. If you're looking right up the snot locker in the face, then that's called head. If you're looking sort of at the 45 left or right of them, that's called flank. If you're looking right at the side of the target, it's beam. And if you're looking up the tail, then it's called tail. It should be pretty obvious. And then opening and closing are the words for, hey, they're for exactly what the words mean. Is the range getting smaller? They're closing with you. Or is the range increasing? They're opening, which might mean they're running away. When we're flying together, if I tell you to float, that just means expand from wherever you are, basically in the same spot. Just expand away from me in a straight line until you get out to about visual limits. Like, don't go blind, but get out there and expand this formation. So I'll just say float. When we are talking to somebody else, third party, and they have a question on whether or not you and I are in visual formation, the way for the flight lead to say that, or you if you're answering the radio because the flight lead's on a different frequency for a minute and he told you to cover the radios, the way you tell a third party that you two are in formation with each other is you tell them that you're holding hands. So, hey, bullet 1 and 2 are holding hands. They're like, okay, got it. They're in formation with each other. Visual formation. Asking where somebody's at, say pause it, is pretty simple. Of course, that's usually going to be a flight lead who's going to say that, because he's going to be asking you, say pause it. If you're the wingman and you don't know where your flight lead is, that's when you're going to throw the B word, blind. Two's blind. You don't have to, wingmen don't ask, say pause it, because you're supposed to tell me you're blind. Saddled and stripped is whether or not you're in formation or out of formation. So if I pull a Hayaka maneuver and you're back there in fighting wing, and I pull it fast enough and hard enough that it spits you out past that 300 meters or outside of that cone. Now, momentary deviations are fine, but if it looks like, oh crap, I really slingshotted you out there with that last maneuver I just did, and you're like, oh, it's gonna be a lot of seconds before I get back into formation, then then that's worth a 2 stripped. I'm like, okay, and then usually as a flight lead, when I hear a stripped call from my wingman, if I can, obviously combat's a totally different situation, but you're not going to be in these kind of formations for combat. But if you get stripped out of one of these formations, then whatever Hayaka maneuvering I was doing, I'm going to ease up and probably give you some easy bogey gathering duck turn, nice and easy to give you both geometry and a throttle advantage to be able to close with me and get back saddled. So if you get stripped out of formation, then as soon as you get back in, then you owe me a saddled call to let me know that you're back in formation, and I can resume my previously scheduled buffoonery. If we're not going to do this in visual, now all this has been visual formation discussions. If we're going to do this via sensors at a slightly longer range outside of visual range, then I will tell you to tie to me. I'll say, number 2, take a lock or something like that, and you'll tell me tied when you have a sensor lock on me for navigation purposes. So if we're doing some sort of trail departure because maybe we're flying around New Babbage and it's now a freaking whiteout blizzard, but we gotta fly through it, then I'm going to be like, okay, to take a 3 mile, drop back to 3 mile trail and tie, and you'll go 2, and then you drop back, get a sensor lock on me, 2's tied, and then get back to 3 kilometers, and when you get back to 3 kilometers, then you call saddled. And then after that, once you're tied, then it's just follow the leader. You just try to hold that 3 kilometer back position and just follow me around wherever I go without trying to cut out in front of me. Okay. If you are in close visual formation, and now it's always funny that we always brief the use of the word breakout. The only time anybody ever says the brevity word breakout is an instructor pilot in the jet with you when he wants to see you do one for grading purposes, because it's on the grade sheet kind of a thing. Because if you end up in a you should break out situation, you don't say it, you do it. If we're sitting here and we're in 3-foot fingertip formation, and all of a sudden you as the wingman, you get a little bobbled over there on the wing, and you go like, whoa, get a little close, and you're afraid you're going to hit me. You don't call breakout on the radio. You just go boom, snap the wings over, and get the hell away. And then you tell me you broke out after you have saved our lives and got and maintained separation between the spacecraft, and you guys are flying away. Then you're like, okay, hey, two's breaking out. It's fly the jet first. Don't crash into the other guy because you're too busy trying to make a radio call. Move the jet first. Make the radio call last after everything else is calmed down. So an instructor pilot may look over and you go, hey, 2, break out, which is just an academic exercise at that point. Because if he's telling you to do it, then obviously things aren't hairy right at the moment. Check X, left or right. Like X is a number of degrees. So if I don't want to do a full up tactical turn or something like that, I'm just going to like, hey, we're going to check 20 right, check 20 left. You don't even have to acknowledge that because I'm just going to say, that's usually just a kind of a courtesy call from a flight lead, particularly if I'm going to go into you and you're in close. If you're in fingertip and I say, hey, checking 20 right, to let you know, okay, if you're on my right side and I go, hey, I'll go checking 20 right, to give you a heads up verbally that, hey, my nose is going to start turning into you so that nobody gets scared when you're in close like that. You'll know, okay, he's just coming over 20 degrees. And you don't, and you're not going, what the hell's he doing? What the hell's he doing? Why is he coming into me? I just told you I'm coming into you, and I'm coming into you for about how many degrees. Now, are you looking at your HUD to see how many degrees I turn? No. That's just so that when you hear it over the radio while you're staring out the window at me, you'll go like, okay, he's only coming into me a few degrees. This isn't going to be a big turn. It's just going to be a little check. He's just sweetening up the line that he's flying through space a little bit. Last one's here. Come back. That's usually be told to you from an outside entity. So, if we're going one direction, all of a sudden Mad Dog goes, hey, bullet flight, come back south. Okay, then you can expect that the flight lead's about to go, hey, hook left or hook right or 90 left or 90 right to get you guys going the right direction. So, which brings you to the next one, hook, left turn. It's an in place 180 turn. That does That's in place. I mean that both of you do a 180 turn. You do not. If you were on one side of the formation after a hook turn, you will be on the other side of the formation. So as it's depicted here, if you were on the right side as the wingman, after a in place 180, a hook turn, say to the left, then you're going to be on the left side of the formation. And then, of course, rejoin should be pretty obvious. And a cross under. The last one is like when we're just tootling along. If I want you on the other side than where you're at right now, I will just simply tell you cross under. And that's what that means. Is like, hey, you're on the right side, get over on the left side. Cross under typically, whenever you guys are particularly in close formation, you want to match the attitude of the flight lead. So we don't want formations where, the flight lead's Avenger is up, air quotes up, and the wingman is upside down to each other. Maybe going the same way, but you guys want to match your role so that you guys actually look like a formation. So using that standard, that's the way you always want to be as the wingman when you are in close formation, such as fingertip, then cross under is exactly where you should go as you cross from one side to the other. You don't go over top of your flight lead so that your flight lead goes under your nose and he's hard to see. You drop down a little bit and cross under them, not directly under. It's really more behind, so that the whole time that they stay up in the glass of your canopy, and therefore here in the computer monitor as you move from one side to the other side of the formation, so that you see them the entire time and they don't go disappearing under your nose. So that's why it's called a cross under and not a crossover. So no crossovers, only cross unders. But for that to be accurate, it means that you both have to be rolled the same direction, so that up means the same thing to both of you. Okay. Are there any questions? I will tap dance for a moment and take the sip of the last 2 molecules of water left in my cup. In case anybody has any questions before we go in and attempt to do some of this. We'll plan on pairing up and do this by twos, and take equal time leading and winging each. Okay. So, I'm not hearing any questions, not seeing any questions in the chat. So, I'm going to consider that good. All right. That wraps up this installment of Academics of Foghorn. I hope you found it interesting and helpful. If you have any questions that I didn't answer, please feel free to contact me via email, Gilded Spectrum, or of course the comments section below, and I'll answer it to the best of my ability as soon as I see it. Members and visitors alike, please hit those follows and subscribe buttons as appropriate. Leave us a comment. We actually do read them, and we take that feedback to heart so that we can always strive to improve our content. You can find out more information at aurorarepublic.space, our bespoke website, or on Spectrum at robertspaceindustriescom/orgs/AuroraRep. I will see you next time. This is Foghorn signing off, wishing a very pleasant remainder of your morning, afternoon, and or evening, and thank you so very much for watching.